This is why it never feels like enough, no matter how much you achieve. And I'm sure you're relating to this. I definitely related to this, where you set some kind of goal, let's say here, you're here, milestone here, and you get to it. You finally get to it. Yeah, you achieved it. Maybe you experience a little high, but it never really feels satiating or satisfying. So you go to the next one and you have the same thing. You have a relief, possibly less relief than here. And you have that relief, but it dies and you go to the next one. But eventually you realize no matter how much you achieve, how much you get to, you never feel that satisfaction, that peace, that enoughness, that feeling of just, I'm good. I've done well, fulfilled within yourself. And you might say, well, I'm just ambitious. That's great. But do we have to be ambitious from lack, right? Do we have to be ambitious for proving ourselves, right? That's a very insular version of ambition. Why can't we be ambition from a deep sense of wholeness? And we just want to build and bring more of that wholeness into the world, right? The people that I've seen who are really doing great things, right? Not just great things for themselves, where it's like, oh, I reached this amount, that too, but they're great things for themselves and the whole world. They're often operating from a deep sense of wholeness, and it's not just about proving it to their dad from when they were younger, right? It's not some almost self-interest. That's still included, that's still part of the whole, but it's not all it's about because they are operating from a wholeness, okay? And so I remember I had a client who came to me and he was doing really well. He had quite easily got to like 20K per month with an agency, but he still was operating from a complete sense of enoughness and guilt. And one of the things he felt guilty about was actually guilty for not doing as much because the success had come quite quickly. For whatever reason, he just kind of clicked when it came to running this agency. And so he'd been running it for a couple of years and was at 20K per month very, very consistently, doing very well. And that was the most, he had ever made with a business, right? But he still felt like he wasn't doing enough. He still felt like he wasn't good enough. He still felt like he was guilty, like he was this, like he was that. And no matter where he got to or how long he had success for, it never dropped away. The guilt stayed. Now, why is this? It's because this is just an external projection, right? An external projection of our own internal constructs. Now, constructs, if you take the word, it's construct, how we construct reality, okay? I like the word internal architecture. If you think about a building, we have architecture which creates the building, right? The same thing here. We have architecture which creates our experience of life, our experience. Because there's objective reality here, right? We experience an objective reality. But then we're not really experiencing it because we're filtering it, like here, via our understanding, via our constructs. Our constructs creates a filter of reality. It's something called reticular activation system. People talk about this a lot, but just a filter of reality, okay? Because there's just too much to take in, so I've got to filter it somehow. And constructs aren't bad, but sometimes we take on distorted constructs, so we take on a false view of reality. This is what we call an introject, right? And then everything from that introject is then projected to fit the introjected story, right? The false story of a construct. And so if someone has a positive construct that they're just really worthy, they're just really whole in who they are, right? You've probably met some of these people. Like, how do they just walk through life so easily? Very often they have really positive constructs, right? They're just really secure in who they are. One of the things you see with people who are often grew up in wealthy families, right? Especially if it's a secure, healthy family, not a toxic one. Then what happens is they take on these really secure views of money and often secure views of themselves. Money doesn't really relate to them much. And so often they're really comfortable with asking for what they want because their set point and their construct is at that level. It's just very available and normal for them. Whereas if you've noticed someone who maybe didn't come from that and they actually do really well, maybe they get, I don't know, this guy was like 20K per month, but it could be much more beyond that, 7 figures, 8-figure months, whatever it may be. And for them, it feels like, oh, they can have feelings if that's too much. They can feel like a real lack of steadiness in it. Often we see this people with like lottery winners who they get that big sum of money and they spend it all because their construct was like, oh, that's almost uncomfortable. That's almost, let me get rid of it, right? Obviously, they don't have too much control of this because constructs is within our subconscious experience of reality. But we can work with it if we actually explore that internally. Okay. So now if we come back to the original topic of enoughness, worthiness, whatever you want to call it, right? Even when you achieve success, is if the story is I'm not enough, right? If it introject is I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not whatever it might be, that's the introject. Then also the construct. Introject is just a false truth that's created a construct. Okay, so now our filter is built around not being enough, not being worthy, not being whatever it may be. And so we might experience, we see now this is just a bigger version of the I, but even when we experience the hitting the milestone, but it's from this constructed reality, from this filter that I'm not enough, that I'm not worthy, that I'm not this, we only ever experience a temporary relief, almost a temporary break of the construct, where we're like, oh, I feel relief, I feel satiated and full and whole for a moment. And sometimes it's a longer time, sometimes it's less long. Often when we've gone through a pattern a while, it becomes shorter and shorter and shorter, and we need more and more to get there, right? This is often what creates real addiction, where it's like we get that experience that we wanted from whatever we were using, whether it was alcohol or something like this, and then we just need more and more and more to get a higher experience, but each time we do it, we're actually experiencing it less, right? It's a really horrible, horrible cycle, unfortunately. But that's generated often by constructs. Now, what do we do? Because if our external reality is being experienced via this construct, we can, keep going, but we're just never going to get there because there's no there to get to, right? We're never actually going to be satiated. We're never going to actually feel full. So what do we need to do? Well, this one's pretty simple. We just have to give back the introject. We have to break the construct. Now, the reason I said give back the introject is that's a symbolic way of breaking the construct. So for example, let's say I took off the idea that I'm not worthy, that I'm not this, that I'm not that from, I don't know, a parent or even a school. It can come from many, many places. And then I just give that back and to allow it to leave me. What's going to happen is it's going to leave an empty space. And what we're going to do is we're not going to fill it. Okay, we're not going to add anything to this space. We're just going to witness it and let something emerge on its own, right? Let something just emerge organically, whatever that may be. And I've worked with, hundreds and hundreds of people doing this kind of work. And it's always a little bit unique. You never know what's going to come through. It's a beautiful surprise. But a good example is someone just experiences a deep sense of peace and wholeness. And they just feel that in their whole body. I'm just deeply whole. I'm just deeply at peace. And so what we do is we just nurture this new reality, right? It doesn't look that good because I'm not a very good drawer. But let's say this is like a beautiful sense of wholeness. It's just really within their whole body. So that's the new construct, is wholeness, right? Deeply enough, deeply full. Even at this level, we try not to add labels onto it, words, because we limit what it can be. We actually want it to be a space where the question isn't even asked, right? The reason we don't add a belief of I am enough, because that's living in a reality where enoughness is questioned, right? That's living in a reality where my wholeness, my worthiness is a question. But when we just break the construct, give it back, and we just let it emerge somatically, a deep sense of wholeness, right? But we don't even label it as wholeness, we just feel it. But what happens is we're living in a place where the question was never even asked. Right? Imagine a child who just grew up never even wondering if they're enough. How confident are they going to be? How certain are they going to be? How charismatic are they going to be? So just showing up fully without limits at all, with no limits at all, right? Because they never even questioned it. And that's a much deeper step than feeling I am enough, because there's a subtle question there. There's a construct that I'm living in that is a reality where I might not be enough. But when we break it, there is just the place where the question cannot even be asked. It does not exist.